An argument depends on assuming the validity of reason, and atheism denies that.
Right, there you go. Much drama.
Because I was going to say that too, but I think it has more weight.
You're like the kid in the class who says, what he said. Yeah. Maybe we'll just finish with you guys.
I think, what John said. but also, and this is really uncomfortable to say this, but I think that this is the argument that cuts the deepest as far as like my emotional sadness in response to this is sort of the Gandhi observation, right?
Okay.
That I find Jesus very, very attractive, and I might become a Christian if it wasn't for his followers.
Right.
And so I think it's really our failure to live into our faith with confidence and to mirror the heart of Christ to those around us that is why atheism has a foot to stand on. But I don't think that atheism is believable.
But you understand why people might choose that, because Christians don't enact the kind of life that we're supposed to.
I was listening to J. John recently, who's a very humorous character, an evangelist, and he said this. He said, one of the reasons people believe in God is because they met a Christian. And one of the reasons they don't believe in God is because they met a Christian.
He also has got this brilliant phrase, which is that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think that's where we often get it wrong, particularly in apologetics, is that we spend so long trying to show everyone how clever our arguments are. And of course, some of these arguments are brilliant, and there's some amazing minds up here that have got all these clever arguments, but actually, at the end of the day, people just need to know that you care about them, and more importantly, that God cares about them, that he's got a purpose for their life. And I think that's much more important, that we need to be willing to lose the argument in order to win the person.
Yeah, you know, one thing I'd say too about that is I wrote this book called The Fifth Gospel based off a quote. There's 5 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and Christian. Most people never read the first 4.
Yeah.
Well, the Blaze, there's a Glenn Beck out here in the States does this thing called The Blaze, and The Blaze put this thing out, Pastor reveals another gospel about my book.
Right.
Well, it was the Christians that went to town just, oh, what's this pastor doing? He's revealing another gospel, a 5th gospel. And what they were doing is they didn't realize I was in their camp, but they just made their judgment on a blur. And boy, it's just an indictment that we have to slow down. If we're going to advance the conversation in our culture too, we got to listen to the other side. We got to do some concessional apologetics. We need to be able to be humble. We need to be able to appreciate things. And Justin, you just do such a beautiful job on that. A guy that every week can take together and you model everything that helps Christianity. Really clean
So you look like you want to say one, but we'll make yours the final thought.
What does that look like?
You just look like you opposed.
Well, I would say for me, I sort of line up with John in that, the argument from reason. It's just, I can't get past that. And so the atheist arguments all seem to fall flat because there's contradictions. They're borrowing from a Christian philosophical framework to make the arguments. So where is the problem? Because I've only had one person in all the time that I've been, arguing. I've had one guy that when his arguments were answered, he said, "Oh, I can't believe that now," and so he changed his mind. One. Right? So answering all these other arguments, I find that you could answer and the person can say, I can see your point. I'm even coming around to believing that, but then they don't want to go further. So I think it's the unspoken that's the hardest to deal with in Christianity. They're not telling you the whole story. So the unspoken that's left undone in these conversations, the existential side, so the issue of...
And the fact that ultimately, and I think this is quite important as we draw the conference to a close, we've been talking about changing people's minds, and arguments and evidence are certainly part of that journey for many people. But in my experience, it's not just about the arguments, ultimately. The people are a mixture of emotions, the spiritual dimension, we're not simply rational, logical creatures where when we are presented with an argument, we'll immediately follow it to its conclusion. And for me, that's where we need the other side, which is often lacking in our apologetics. We need to pray for people just as much as we need to give them arguments. We need to care for them, because very often it's an emotional issue just as much as an intellectual issue ultimately. And we need to kind of do the things that Jesus did ultimately. And so for me, changing a person's mind is about a whole life endeavour. We've had a wonderful range of arguments and evidences brought in all kinds of ways today. But when you go and sit next to your neighbour, your friend, your colleague, simply be Christ to them, and you're going to go a lot of the way there already. That's so important. So that would be what I would leave you with today. Thank you very much.